It's the Chris Michaels Show. Joining me tonight, fresh off of grouse hunting, is John Warner IV, historian and author. He is the son of five-term U.S. Senator John Warner III from Virginia, who was also the Secretary of the Navy and Chairman of the Armed Services Committee during the Vietnam War. John joins us tonight with a wealth of knowledge. John, thank you for joining the Chris Michaels Show.
Oh, good to be back. Thank you.
Yeah. So we are on this crazy pathway in the Middle East. Just now, before we started to do this recording, the United States decided to bomb Iran again. It seems as though we can't just quit this addiction. So why do you think this is happening? What do you think they're hiding over there?
Well, let me give you a background of the Middle East because it's always fascinated me. I went to Egypt when I was 19,
Okay.
pyramids and everything, but the never-ending wars. I was in my father's office in the 1990s, which I spent a lot of time there with him, and I asked a four-star general, Marine Corps, I believe. I said, "Why are there so many?" I was in my mid-30s, early 30s, and I said, "Why are there so many wars in the Middle East going back to ancient times? It just seems like a hot spot, and it can't be just oil." And he's like, "No, it's not just oil. That's 30%, 40% of it, but that's not why we had the Gulf War and everything. It's not the only reason." He said, "There's an old saying in some circles, and it's the Middle East is not a war to be won. It's an Aladdin's cave of cosmic treasures to protect."
So that means
At
that
the
we
time,
weren't necessarily looking for bin Laden in those caves.
well, they do, but there's been a fascination with the Near East, the Middle East, going back centuries. Goes back to Alexander the Great. He brought along psychics. They used to call them seers, with his army when he invaded Persia and beyond towards India and all that. Armies were always looking for ancient anything, tech, scrolls, knowledge, gems, wisdom, treasure, everything under the sun. And so it goes back a long way. But from all of the things I've read and the people I've talked to, the Middle East is key. You've got stories of the Anunnaki, of course, but like Afghanistan, the British tried, the Russians tried, we tried, and no one stayed. But we still have special forces there. I'm convinced of that, in tunnels up there in the hills, guarding things, exploring. It's never ending. There's always been legends and stories of tunnels everywhere. I mean, all over the earth, but especially in the Middle East, in the mountains, in Zagros, all the way up into Afghanistan and everywhere. And so with Iran, I work for a couple think tanks here in DC, and it's sort of second nature. Everyone on sort of in these quiet circles of people, diplomats, spooks, retired people, really a good, smart bunch of people that I work with. But it's common knowledge that Iran's had nuclear weapons for at least 15 years, maybe longer. But they had built enough of them on missiles and everything that was a real problem, because the thinking is that not only would they lob them on Israel, but also some of the Gulf states, which would have really caused a lot of mess. Now we have anti-missile technology, satellite, weapons to bring them down, but it would have been bad. So that, and also what they've been doing, the Iranians have been building vast amounts of deep underground military bases, and accessing these tunnels. And so what I think is going on is we wanted to secure what was in a lot of their bases. You can come in from underground. That's a whole long story, but you can. And there's a lot of fighting underground. They train the army for it. If you look on some of the articles perusing, they're training, our military, Marines and Army to fight underground. So They're not hiding it.
Yeah,
Underground
there was that
being secured.
renouncement
Right.
in
But
Trump
the
1.0.
the Middle East is always full of that old technology.
Yeah. I
Uh,
honestly think that they're trying to snatch some of that stuff back.
yes. The Baghdad Museum was looted in 1940 when the Germans were in Iraq. A lot of people don't know that. You can look it up. The British kicked them out really quick, but they looted the Baghdad Museum, and it was looted after that. And it's been looted all these times, and everyone takes the clay tablets and the cylinder seals. I mean, what are they looking for? If that Anunnaki story is not real, it's real. They're looking for all that knowledge, and so it's a fascinating journey going through all that. But yes, these Middle East wars, they're multi-pronged, multi-agenda, as all wars are. It's just people see the news and they're like, "Oh, I'm informed." And it's like, no, there's a million other things. You've been shown 10%.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you have to go back to World War II, at
Yeah.
least World War II. I mean, you can,
Well, we were in the Middle East.
right, but you can also go back to Napoleon. He brings all of these translators and Freemasons with him when he suddenly finds the Rosetta Stone. I mean, what are the odds that that would happen
Right.
at that
He
same
had
exact
Freemason.
time?
He was a secret Freemason, I think. Walter Bosley writes a great book on him. I'd recommend that.
Yeah.
He was a mystic, Napoleon. He had Italian royal bloodlines. So he was of the bloodline. Everyone thinks he's a little corporal. No, he was an artillery lieutenant. They called him that out of respect.
Yeah.
So Napoleon is somebody to research. There was no real clear reason why he got to go to Egypt. The French government, the reports are like, oh, Napoleon just took off. No, the secret societies of France sponsored all that, and they sent the best and brightest with Napoleon. And with local help, they found the Rosetta Stone and a whole host of treasures. Now, here's the weird part. Now, of course, everyone knows the Battle of the Nile, and the British attacked the ships, French ships, in there. Oops, that was bad. But all of the French scientists and all their gear and all the findings were in a building in Alexandria, and the British captured them. Well, they were allowed to go back to France with everything.
Wow.
So you tell me, why didn't the British abscond with all that? They knew what it was. Somebody had an agreement. And the thinking is the agreement was with the British secret societies, the Royal Society, whatever have you, in the 18th century. They said, okay, you guys found it, research it, but in 10 years, we get it, so we can research it. And when Napoleon fell from, and was captured and everything like that, the British automatically got a lot of that stuff.
Sure. Absolutely.
So the search for ancient knowledge and cosmic knowledge, it goes back, to the beginning. I think to the Great Flood, and then after, they were like, oh shit, we've lost a lot of civilizations. Let's go find, all the cosmic treasures and knowledge. And that's what secret societies are for, to maintain the secrecy around that knowledge. A lot of it, like the Freemasons, a lot of it is the Egyptian mystery school information.
Yeah.
How they built the pyramids and all that stuff. It's anti-gravity tech. I mean, humans built it.
I don't buy the UFO
scholar that describes
alien.
the priest caste tapping the blocks with their tuning fork scepters, and they create a standing wave under the blocks, and they move them. I forget his name, but I got it in my notes. About 1100. He was a well-known Arab traveler, scholar, writer, and he said, "Holy shit! I saw the priest caste, and they were repairing the pyramids."
Wow. That's interesting, because I never really bought that idea that aliens came down and built the pyramids.
Well, they were around, all the strange-headed beings in the Egyptian god pantheon.
We can also,
look at the carving closely of Osiris and Nefertiti and their strange little children with the oblong heads. Come on.
Yes.
I mean, it's right in your face. And then in the Berlin Museum, they have Nefertiti's daughter with a big oblong head, and everyone's like, ooh, ah. That's cool. And they have, come on, there were all kinds of races of people on this planet a long time ago. Still are. They're just hiding out today. Um, the giant skull-headed people in Peru. I mean, it's completely obvious. So, you know, that's what that's all about. But the Middle East, oh yeah, very fascinating.
I mean, take a look at Zoroastrianism. It's a
Yeah,
religion that's not really well known. It's a fire religion, but
yeah.
Ahura Mazda, the guy, right? He's flying around
Zoroaster, yeah.
in a
Oh, come on.
UFO. It's got the wings and the circle, and he's popping out the
Yeah.
top.
Gee whiz, what's that?
And it
It's
comes from
all,
where? Comes from Iran.
scholars are like physicists. They want to just argue, 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 and get nowhere.
Publicly, at least.
Yeah.
You'd have to assume behind closed doors they've come to some
There's
kind
a
of
few.
compartmentalized consensus.
There's a few. And I've learned from some of them, and it makes perfect nuts and bolts sense once you get over the hump of disbelief, that tens of thousands of years ago there were ancient civilizations, high civilizations, and ET traffic coming and going. This planet's been Grand Central Station since the beginning. You know, biological experiments, mining. I showed a guy the Nazca lines, and also a picture at Nazca of a mountain that's been sheared off cleanly,
Yeah.
machine work. And he said, "Yeah, that's strip mining. Where is this?" And I'm like, "In Peru, and it's supposed to be 1,000 years old." And he's like, "Well, that's machine work. I know it." And everyone's like, "Oh, Nazca lines. It's a mystery." It's not a fucking mystery. It's so simple. People are so stupid. Iron oxide pellets are everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Scooped them up. Gee whiz, what can you do with those? A million different things. It's strip mining. There's a lot of mysterious mesas amongst mountain ranges.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's a table mountain. It's like, well, the other mountains around it aren't. And they're like, oh, it's just a table mountain. Geology. And it's bullshit.
When I lived in Arizona, I went up to Sedona.
Yeah, they're
So
great.
that's a very, very nice place, right? They have fires there right now, so they're trying to put those out. But there's a little park called Slide Rock or Oak Creek. And basically, you go in there and you're in these canyons, and there's little streams at the bottom of it. So you're literally walking through streams, and it's very, very pretty. But at some point, you get into essentially this tube. Now, geologists say, oh, it's a lava tube. And then it goes up into the canyon, and you can see all these walls, but you're literally walking through a tube. When I first saw this, I thought boring technology, some type of ancient boring technology. It could be lava tubes, I don't know. But the first impression I got was that they were drilling for something way, way long ago. Because when I lived out in the American Southwest, there were plenty of rock structures that should not be there, and they are way too put together. It's almost as if someone placed them that way.
Oh, wow. I've never seen this. And it's completely split.
Yeah. You go through this canyon, and then all of a sudden it's like there's two canyon walls that you walk through, and then at the bottom where you're actually walking is a stream, but it bulges out and you're in a tube. But you can look up and you can see these beautiful canyon walls all around, but you're in a tube. They claim it's a lava tube, but to me, I saw this, the first impression I got was that there was some kind of boring going on, drilling for something, mining for something.
Well, there's certainly, I just saw a picture of it. There's certainly a lot of lava tubes. And it does look natural, although the geological split between the two halves is very remarkable. But there are tunnels under the earth. Area 51 is built on a site of ancient tunnels at crossroads, according to David Adair, and I believe him. He's a real physicist. People are like, oh, he's a nut job. I'm like, are you a quantum physicist? No, he's not. He's very smart. And he was a boy genius. The Air Force hired him back in the 70s. He said, oh, yeah, they built out tunnels, but some of them were already there. The thing is, it's a real estate issue. So the galaxy is very crowded. Apparently, everything is bought up and paid for. And so let's just say, a group of ETs get together. They're very light skinned and fragile, whatever, and they want to go live on a planet that has two binary sun system. Well, it's too hot. So why live on the surface with the storms and the lightning and the high winds and everything? Live underground. Create an environment. You got an artificial sun. It's not a problem. You can have moisture, water, everything you need, and live there. And you want to access each giant cavern with tunnels. The Earth is honeycombed. That's no secret. Yeah, there are lava tubes. There's active volcanoes, but there's a lot of real estate between that. Why would you use only the surface of a planet? I mean, it's so stable underground. You have to have artificial light and water and things like that, but that's easily done with technology. You're coming halfway across the universe. You've got the technology to do that, and so you protection from enemies and nosy neighbors and irritating family. I don't know.
In-laws, right?
It makes perfect nuts and bolts sense.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, "Oh, there's no underground civilizations." I'm like, there might be, because it makes sense. You don't just use the surface of the planet. In fact, one person said something very interesting, a whistleblower of some type, I can't remember who. And they said, an ET race goes by a planet and they see stuff on the surface, and then they're like, yeah, those guys aren't very advanced. The advanced people are underneath the surface, because you can control your environment very easily, and there's a million reasons why. You don't want to advertise yourself. It's just like on Earth. I mean, if you go somewhere, you want to keep on the down low. You don't want to advertise yourself. There are conquering star nations who will come by and go, "Hey, I see somebody down there. I wonder who the hell it is." We'll probably mow them down, take whatever they have. So, the people hiding out underground, there's a lot of reasons to do that. Yes, UFOs use quantum tunneling. You can go through solid rock and everything like that. So that's another way to access them. And the tunnels are also for flying. Everyone's like, "Oh, what, do they have a train?" And I'm like, "They don't need a train. You can fly a UFO under the water, underground, anywhere through a tunnel." You could be from one cavern on the side of the Earth to the other in a few minutes. You got to combine all these technologies and concepts and things. I find people don't do that very often. They don't combine technologies. They're like, "Oh, a flying saucer flies like this. That's it." And it's like, no, there's 1,000 propulsion systems, and you can combine them for different effects. It's just like ordering a car with lots of options. Sometimes they complement each other. But some reason in the UFO community, everyone's like, "Oh, the tall whites are out in Area 51, and they're just, that's it. They fly a Tic Tac." And it's like, no, they're pretty inventive people, but they've created a nice life for themselves underground. So combining technologies and inventing things, you got to need an imagination to do that. So I recommend it to people to, I just finished my acronym list I put on my website.
Yes. I went through it.
Thousands of legacy corporations, military programs, startups, they call them unicorns for some reason. And, they're all using UFO tech. We're using UFO tech right now, communicating LED lights, Teflon pans, fiber optics, graphene, nanomaterials, medical frequency devices. We're all using the tech. So everyone's like, "Oh, the deep state is guilty of everything." And it's like, well, you're using the tech.
You're more than happy to participate. Yeah.
You're using the banking system they created with electronic currency. You're in the game. Everyone's in a big poker game. You just ante it up. There's that one guy in Alaska who doesn't use anything, but that's it.
Yeah, just the one guy.
Lanterns.
So I wanted to go back
every day. It's no big deal.
I wanted to go back for a second. You said something that I thought was interesting, is that there is a lot of real estate out there, and there are people or beings that may have claim on it. This whole idea that everybody needs to start getting a digital ID with a social credit score with central banking digital currency, and then you've got people like Larry Fink trying to tokenize everything, including your breath, trees, waterways, anything you can imagine. To me, when I see this, the first thing that comes to my head is, why are they trying to put a value on Earth itself? Sure, it could be derivatives. Sure, it could be trying to, tokenize everything so that you can wipe out the debt. But to me, this says that somebody is trying to maybe put a value on this planet, and they may be coming back to make sure that value is what it is.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. One's anything Larry Fink does, steer clear. Digital currencies are based on nothing. Fiat currency is bad enough, but digital currencies are based on absolutely nothing. There's nothing to back it up. No gold, no silver, no. So they're using natural resources as a way to back up their tokens or whatever the hell they call them. You're buying shares in Sedona or the national parks or anything. They're trying to monetize that because they don't use the money out in space and the galaxy. No, it's all barter. I'll trade you this for an apple pie. 10,000 apple pies, and it makes sense. So they're trying to get us. Some people are trying to get us off fiat currency and make the electronic banking system more prevalent, and monetize the world, monetize all the resources, monetize everything. And I presume, it has to do with this galactic barter system, the commerce that goes on. It's been going on for thousands and tens of thousands and millions of years, commerce, exploration, etc. But now the people involved in the deep state and everything who understand the space economy and, all the asteroid mining and mining of the moons in the solar system, that's trillions and trillions of dollars. They're trying to create new financial systems. And it is alarming and disturbing, but usually the public just follows suit. It's like when they first started doing electronic wire transfers, people were very nervous about that. I use them all the time, so it's electronic, but monetizing everything on planet Earth, very strange and eyebrow raising.
I agree with you. And I think the ultimate goal here is to reduce as many humans as possible. They had a choice. Do they want to choose humans or do they want to choose artificial intelligence? They didn't choose humans. Look at what Donald Trump is doing. He's allowing companies like Meta, X, Elon Musk to fire up all of these nuclear power plants, while the narrative that we have to face is climate change and renewable energy and electronic vehicles with shut-off switches for everybody else. I mean, this is clear that there's some kind of eugenicist agenda that they're trying to culminate over the next few years. And you brought up underground civilizations. Look at what Kushner just did. He bought that island from Bulgaria, right? Wasn't this an island riddled with bunker complexes and includes a submarine pen? Of all things, a
Well,
submarine pen?
that's kind of nutty. Building underground bunkers for yourself to survive a cataclysm is not smart. The best air filtration systems are, they're not immune to certain gases and things like that. If you find an air vent of some billionaire's bunker, you can just pour diesel fuel down in it and light it on fire. Good luck filtering that. So nobody's using their brains. There's no escape. You can have a private island, but someone's going to find you, for resources. But what'd you say before?
Artificial intelligence. They didn't choose us. They chose that.
America needs those big data centers powered by thorium salt or the new compact nuclear. That's in my acronym list. The company that does. There's several companies doing micro reactors. That's a stopgap until cold fusion is green lighted. I mean, they've had cold fusion and the deep state and the military for 50, 60 years. And quantum computing, because you can't build spacecraft without quantum computing or have quantum navigation or quantum communications using quantum entanglement. So you got to have all that to build these fancy spaceships and go everywhere. We're probably interstellar, is my guess. Wormhole travel is not that big a deal. Everyone thinks it is. It's not. Einstein proved it. Einstein-Rosen bridge. It's not that. Once you learn all these tricks, warp drive, and you build your spaceship, you're out there, and it's just sort of Star Trek on steroids, is what I'd like to think of it. But it's much. Star Trek didn't get into the multi dimensions very much, and space travel is dimensional travel. It's time travel as well. So it gets complicated, but we're definitely mining the solar system. I can guarantee that.
How far do you think we're out there?
Huh?
How far do you think we are out into the solar system?
You get in your Lockheed Martin Black Triangle, TR3B or whatever, you can be in Saturn within an hour. That's what I've been told.
Wow.
The moon is 11 minutes from ground level. If not faster.
Where do you think they're launching these from?
Oh, anywhere.
Diego Garcia or?
Yep, Diego Garcia. Kwajalein is a covert military base. But you have to remember optical visibility. They just roll it out at Edwards Air Force Base. Nobody can see anything, and it's gone.
Yeah.
We're way beyond that. Everyone's like, optical invisibility, I would have seen that. And I'm saying, no, you wouldn't have. When they did the X-35 fighter jet prototype, they had painted the magician's hat and the cards, call it the hat trick. Well, the hat trick is optical invisibility. Now, my wife and I we hear jets on full afterburner out here at the Potomac River. And we've got a really big view. Sometimes you can't see a fucking thing. So, I mean, and you look up the news and it's like no reports of jets, doing aerobatics or whatever. So they probably scrambled jets to intercept who knows what. And it's optically invisible. No one's the wiser. You do hear it. And a fighter jet on an afterburner is clear. So I'm just saying that, we have all these technologies, we've combined them, and we're out in the stars. People think that's a huge deal. It is on one hand, but on the other, once you get the tricks down and you build a giant submarine with removable sections that can, wormhole travel to the Andromeda Galaxy and back, you want a hamburger and lunch there. Oh, I got a meeting, and you come back, and because you have temporal, physics working for you with the torsion and the quantum physics, you can be back 10 minutes before you left. Don't mess up the timeline. So, in other words, the way I was told is a spaceship goes to Jupiter. There's a Stargate, a wormhole there, and there's a line of people. I'm sure they have fast food and coffee and everything. Hey, how you doing? And it's everybody, and it's run by some star nation or other, and it's run like a business. I mean, you pay a toll, you wait your turn, and so it's kind of like that. It's all over the galaxy, all over the universe, how people travel. But apparently it's breaking down some of that. They're not even sure who built that system so long ago. Who knows, a trillion years ago. But it needs maintenance just like a highway. People have lost the knowledge and things like that. You're getting into Asimov and Heinlein level of sci-fi, fiction, which really wasn't fiction.
Yeah.
Like Philip K. Dick, those guys were tapped into the universe.
Right.
I read, growing up, and I was just like, this rings, true to me. But
I can totally see that. I in my gilded youth, I did some channeling and past life regressions and all this other stuff, and there was one little instance where I did regress to a point where there was interstellar travel going on, and the feeling that I got from that one little episode was that it had a Nazi origin to it. Not to say that Nazis were the ones that were the pioneers of space, but there was some
Yeah.
kind of aspect of that Nazism that was permeating from Earth out into the stars. And I'm not sure how true that is, but I can sort of buy that. If we're to see whatever that we're seeing on Earth as a reflection of the above, it doesn't seem like it's a very nice prospect to see a human being from Earth out there in the stars.
Yeah. Well, I know a hell of a lot about the Germans. It takes a lot of study. It takes a lot of imagination. You got to connect a billion dots. But the Germans, they have a knack for war and militaries, going back to the Teutonic Knights and even to the Goths and the Visigoths fighting the Romans. People were trying to genocide them. They were very fierce. But certainly in the 19th century, the occult and the mysticism and spiritualism was on full power. So they ran with it. And the turn of the century, you had von Liszt and von Lebensfeld and all these guys in the Vril and Tula Society, and also the Edda Society, like the Norse Eddas, which are the legends of the gods, who came down and helped the Norse peoples. Gods and goddesses. Come on, folks. They're ETs from out of town. Some help us, some don't. Some steer us, some manipulate us, some don't. It's not a big deal once you get over the hump. So the Germans going out in space, there's a lot of stories, but I write about it in my new book. They definitely were working on propulsion systems and discs. I'm convinced of that. How far they got along, I don't know. Operation High Jump in Antarctica in 1947, very strange. J.P. Farrell says we lost a cruiser. I can't find anything, but somebody told him we lost a cruiser. The Germans had 10 discs and they kicked our ass.
Really?
Yeah, we signed a 1959 agreement with everyone, Russia, China, Germany, everybody, that said, hey, people, let's leave Antarctica alone. And so
why would they want that?
Permits and things to go into Antarctica. Everything sensitive is under the ice. My dad told me that. Operation Deep Freeze, that was ongoing for decades. And they were doing sub pens and missile silos under the ice. The Russians were there, the China was there, others were there. And I think the Germans definitely built a base there during the war and before. Why pour all that money into something very far away for nothing? And this bullshit story about, they were there for whale and seal oil. No.
Yeah, sure.
No.
Absolutely. No. Of course. Naturally, that's what they were there for.
Something's going on. And so the Germans at being out in space, it sounds like a stupid movie, like Hollywood comes out with Iron Sky to make fun of it. And that's when when there's that much smoke blowing up your ass, there's a fire somewhere.
Yes.
So you can go out into space and ET comes down. They're like, hey, how you doing? You want to check out some real estate in Mars or Moon or, anywhere you want to go. And they're like, oh, yeah. And, the Germans had a lot. What do the Germans have that ETs want? I'm sorry to come up with this, but the death camps, people say they killed 6 million people. I don't know. I could see them killing 2 million people. That's an awful lot amount of people. I think they traded people, human trafficking, for technology. And that's the big secret of World War II. It's the dirtiest one. And
I think that still goes on today.
It does.
Human trafficking.
It does.
And that's off planet too. Because
I do
in
believe in wars, you study a war, they said the dead, the wounded, and the missing.
Yeah.
In the recent war 10 years ago under Obama in Syria, there was 250,000 people missing. Where are they?
That's a lot. How many people go missing in the United States alone?
Go missing in the United States alone? It gets sobering.
Yeah.
I talked to an FBI guy who did a film on human trafficking, and I broached some of these things. He's like, I could not put that in my film. They warned me. You can look it up. He did it.
Yeah.
It's just the human trafficking on Earth. The sex slavery is terrible, but what would we humans, other than natural resources, which an ET Star Nation could just come down and take, but there's some funky cosmic laws going on. And so when you do that, you have to make contract agreements. And a lot of people say contract law and contracts come from the stars long, long, long time ago. And so you do a contract, you keep to it, or you're in big trouble. So I think the Germans made some deals for technology. Help us, and we'll give you what you want under cosmic law, whatever. Even the regressive star nations have to comply to cosmic law, at least superficially. They bend it and they break it and stuff, but they may not break it. They could bend the hell out of it. My dad says in Congress, I can't break the law, but you could bend the hell out of it.
Of course, naturally.
Yeah, well,
why wouldn't you? Any good lawyer would.
So they're bending it. The cosmic law, hermetic law. It's just common sense stuff, but messing with civilizations that's not star travel capable, it's a big no-no. Apparently, Prime Directive in Star Trek. I think it's called the law of non-intervention. It's a hermetic law. And that's taken very seriously, although it's broken and bent a lot. So I think it's a possibility that the Germans were out in space in the 30s. Some say in 1929, they cobbled together a few discs, strangely enough, out of chrome moly steel. It has some interesting energetic properties to it. And they use
like what?
They use U-boat pressure hatches with the spinning wheel, to lock and unlock them. And apparently that's what Mark McCandlish drew. I think in the late 80s, he went to a military expo and they had the 3 discs walled off from the general public. But if you had a VIP, you could come in and look at it. And he says, those are German. Those were given to us sometime during the war, because you have to remember on the down low occult side and the OSS and the MI6 and the German Abwehr and other things, you can make deals without, I know we're fighting, but we're going to make deals. And, because my grandfather in the OSS, he said he worked with a lot of Germans. Some were, still in uniform. And so, this is even before Project Paperclip, which he later worked on with Ellen Dulles. But, on the deeper, cosmic stuff, we're dealing with the Russians, we're dealing with the Chinese on it right now. Xi knows a lot, Putin knows a lot about what they have and everything like that. But there's a lot of stuff that's kept secret even from them. Just as our president, we're the worst. Greer says there's 35 security levels above the president of the United States, probably 40 now. But Trump knows some of the truth through his uncle, John G. Trump, physicist, high voltage, and he knows the cosmic truth. How much is anyone's guess? I went and saw Grush speak at Capitol Hill. It was kind of lame, sadly. I like Grush. But, that whole Mellon, Avi Loeb, Elizondo shit show, President Trump and the NSC Council picked Avi Loeb, who is CIA and Mossad, and everyone knows it.
Yeah, came over here to work on Star Wars. Come on.
We're done. That's just another Warren Commission runaround hot air distraction campaign. So there's Trump for you. He doesn't give a shit about disclosure. It's too big. He knows the corporations will throw a shit fit. Some people say the deep state's more powerful than the U.S. military. It's sky's the limit. But he made his choice. And I knew my think tank put their hat in the ring and said, you're Jack Sarfati's and some of the other gang, and they rejected it. They don't want more disclosure. They want to keep a lid on it.
Yeah.
Let tiny little grains out over long periods of time. And I'll say it 1 billion times. That would have worked 30 years ago. Not today. The internet's changed the world. Everyone knows a lot more information. There's more mud in the river. And boy, Avi Loeb and his scientists will say, "Oh, we don't have enough data. We went through the documents and we couldn't make it work." And excuse, excuse, excuse. They're delaying for time. They know it's going to blow up. They just don't know when.
Do you think they have some kind of device that allows them to effectively predict the future, and they know they cannot avoid some form of disclosure on a massive scale?
Most likely, yes. I think Project Looking Glass has a lot of truth in it. But you're looking at future probabilities. Time exists all at once, so the past, present, and future all happen at once, and they're always changing because change is constant in the cosmos.
Yeah.
That's the only constant, change. So you can get probabilities in the future, a few years into the future, but they can change daily. So my advice would be, don't go by that, too much. I wouldn't, and so I think they see disclosure happening organically around the world and they can't stop it. So they're just trying to get ahead of it. And America drags its feet. We have the most technology. We have the most weapons. We have the most money. We have the most, brightest minds in the world here. Trust me on that. And this recent murdering and suiciding of scientists, that's very sloppy. But the corrupt media, they ran with it. I was surprised.
What do you think about that? About all of those scientists?
It's another message. Now, people should understand that a lot of these scientists, I think some of them, had patents. Well, under their NDAs, those patents do not belong to them.
No, like any employer.
Right. And so you're going to take your patent that you worked on for 20 years and go make money on it in a company? No. Now, they should imprison them under national security law, but they shouldn't kill them. The only reason they killed them is so they can warn the other kids not to do it. But it doesn't seem to stop people from doing it. Trust me, a quantum physicist, the top scientists, whatever, they're very narrow focused. They don't know what's going on over here. They don't understand how a carburetor works on a car, how to hitch a mule or a horse up. They don't know how to, any of that practical stuff. They know their thing. So they're like, I'm working for DARPA. I've worked 30 years. I'm going to go out there and make money. And they're like, no, you're done. And, it's very sad. Amy Estrich was a young lady. She lost her life. They play hardball. And, it's nothing new. They've been killing people since 1945 on this. Shut your mouth. Probably during the war as well. Hey, I've got some Foo Fighter information. Really? Shut up. So, it's the deep state is hardball. National security state, the military, industrial, corporate intelligence complex plays hardball. A lot of that is for national security purposes. I understand that. I agree with it. But a lot of it's very heavy-handed and fascist and kind of brutal. So that was a warning, as clear as day. Everyone in DC is like, "Oh God, another one? Really? Shit." It's sad.
It's true. Yeah.
People killed. What was that? Air Force general?
The Caslin, right?
Or they kidnapped him, put him back to work. They do that too. They're like, "You screwed up. Now you're gonna be in Dugway Proving Ground, 5 miles underground for the rest of your life," and they mean it. There are people who go down into the network of deep underground military bases in this country. They never surface, ever, because one guy I talked to, he said, "Yeah, we call them, you goddamn topsiders."
I can buy that.
Everyone down there knows about the technology. There's different classifications, and but everyone's in the know. They don't want to come back up and mix with the general population, which, sadly, are ignorant and stupid. They don't want to come back up, a lot of them. Some of them don't. I mean, they must have made it very nice to live down there. Or a lot of people don't have a choice.
Well, if you can go off into the stars for a cheeseburger, I mean, why wouldn't you?
Sure. You can walk through a local portal. They call them corridors. I don't know, maybe it resembles a corridor, but they have meetings around the solar system, and it's like, hey, come into this room, and you feel a slight electric shock, and then you're like, have your meeting, and you come back, whatever. You don't even know you're gone, and you're on, Venus.
Right. Couldn't that be the ultimate way of compartmentalizing intelligence? If you shoot forward to a meeting and then you shoot backwards, would you not have any memory of it?
Oh, they have blank select technology. That's for sure. My dad went to the Gulf War when he was a senator in '92, and I said, tell me that story. I couldn't go with him. I went everywhere else with him, but not to the Iraq. And he went with the Armed Services Committee and the Select Intel Committee. It was a classified mission, and they did their thing there. I got a picture of them there, and they came back on an Air Force jet. Actually, they took missile fire, and they had to pop flares.
Mm-hmm.
That must have been exciting. And he said, "Son, I fell asleep for 9 hours, and I woke up in D.C. at Andrews. I never sleep on planes more than an hour or two, and I don't remember a damn thing." And he told me that before he died. So I'm talking, you're talking 2018, 19. He died in 2021. That's probably blank slate. They had their meeting, and they just, Bob Lazar says the same thing. The Janet jet that takes off from Vegas and goes to Area 51 every day. The word is you do your job. They blank slately. You go home. You don't remember it. You go back to work. They zap you on the jet, and you're ready to go again. But I'll bet you dimes to donuts that wears out something in here.
Oh, it's got to. You don't have any choice.
It probably causes permanent brain damage of some sort. I'm sure you can do it hundreds of times, but eventually. But they don't care. They're using people up. They bring them like dish rags.
You're a human resource.
Done. I can't get any more work out of you. You're done. They toss you. Or you're disloyal or something like that. It's, all that stuff is starting to fall apart. The weird thing is the media. And of course, the Mellon Avi Loeb, they have News Nation and Ross Coulthard, he's a shill. The CIA bought News Nation. Everyone in DC knows it in my circles. It's like, haha, typical. The CIA buys radio stations and TV stations all the time. They've been doing it for 75 years. They go into a country and, they want to overthrow a leader of a banana republic. What do you do first? You buy up the radio stations. Propaganda.
Yep.
So when people are like, "Oh, Ross Coulthard, slapped Lou Elizondo on the hand, the other day," and it's like, no, he's not. That's all scripted.
I saw Lou Elizondo recently. The guy looks like he lives in a double wide somewhere. I mean, how can anybody take him seriously about anything at this point?
They promoted the hell out of him.
It's so disgusting. And nobody is able to critically think about any of this stuff. People just go along with it hook, line, and sinker, except for some. I would assume you, Dark Journalist, and many others like Dr. Joseph Farrell, too. So where are we in this whole process of disclosure at this moment? I mean, we have somebody like Anna Paulina Luna supposedly spearheading everything. Now, why is she named Luna that's associated with the moon when her real name is Meyerhofer? I mean, come on.
I mean, I've seen these political dog and pony shows all my life. My dad taught me all the dirty tricks. You get a sensitive subject in Congress. I don't care what it is. And they're like, holy shit, we got to deal with it. What do you do? Well, you bury it with amongst other things, and you do a lot of hot air talk, hearings, and the impression of doing something, but you're just spinning on ice and getting nowhere. And the public's like, oh, those guys are getting somewhere. Lou Elizondo's a hero and everything. Where have they gotten us in 9 years? Nowhere. Grush has been talking about crash retrievals and extraterrestrials and, all that biologics and, mind control and all that. They're talking about topics, which I think is good, better than nothing. But I don't buy, this Senator Gillibrand and Burchett, he always talks about little green men and flying saucers. He's full of shit. Luna, they may be well-meaning, but they're being puppeteered.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I don't believe anything is really going to get revealed in any of this.
No, the government's, there's no upside what I tell people in my circles. There's no upside for full disclosure by corporations, certain parts of the military, Congress and government, you know, things like that, the three-letter agencies, the intel community, the MICIC, Military Industrial Corporate Intelligence Complex. There's no upside. Okay, this country runs on money. Catherine Austin Fitts figured it out. I mean, the GDP.
Oh yeah, she certainly did. Yeah,
The GDP of this country is probably, in my view, about 125 trillion a year now. So, because the stock market's booming, and everything. It's so, people think there's a deficit. That's complete bullshit. There never was a deficit. My dad taught me that in the 80s. He said, there's no deficit. They just do that to keep people fearful. He's like, I'm against it, but I won't publicly go out against it. But personally, I'm against it. It's a shitty way of doing business. But the Fed is in the white pages, not the federal blue pages in DC. Back when they had phone books.
I remember phone books. I used to sit on them when I was a toddler.
That's right. So, I mean, it's silly. We're lied to about so many different things, but the financials, oh boy, they don't want that running. That's part of disclosure, and they do not want that out. But let's get a little dark for a moment. If there is something close to full disclosure, which I think is going to happen organically anyhow within the next 25 years or less, I think, the deep state still wins. It wins if there is no disclosure. It wins if there is disclosure, because they've been planning for this for 70 years. And, if you have protests of, hippie-minded people, and everything, they have the LRAD system. They have all kinds of psychotronic weapons. They can, not to kill people, but just disable them and make them ill. And so protests, good luck. You're going to get what you get. Everyone has to use a bank. Everyone has to go do a job, unless AI takes it, which is going to.
Yes,
Quantum,
absolutely.
Room temperature, single atom quantum computing technologies are here. There's a startup in Dulles, Virginia, in Ashburn. God, it looks like Palo Alto now, with all the military contractors and intel companies and all these military startups. They've cracked it. Data centers will use far less water and far less electricity. And once it's on the grid with cold fusion, you can do it underground for safety. You don't want someone blowing.
I don't think people comprehended just what you said.
Yeah, well, too bad. It's here. And so quantum AI will be a boon for humanity and not a boon. It can be used as a control system, but you're dealing with technology that the kids running the candy store in the deep state don't have the wisdom or wherewithal to use effectively. Otherwise, you and I would be talking about soccer and cupcakes and my spaghetti recipe. There's more interest in the whole UFO, ET, ancient civilization, the disclosure now, the arena, Thousand Ring Circus with wild animals. There's more interest in it now. The population of the world is greater. I argued this with Greer. He'd have none of it. He says, there's 50 million people worldwide interested in this topic. And I'm like, yeah, but now there's 8.2 billion. Whereas in the 70s, there might have been a couple 100,000 people interested in the topic. Yes, maybe some more, but you have to adjust for, just like you adjust for inflation, you have to adjust for population. But, forget it. There is more interest, I agree, but it's not as great as people think, because there's so many more people, and there's a million channels and a million sports, activities, World Cup, everything to gain people's attention for distraction, bread and circuses. So you're dealing with a lot of hurdles, but there's no upside for a lot of people. I met with my think tank met in London with some people. One of them was a billionaire who created a gadget that he made $100 billion on, and he's And I said, so your technology, you know where that came from? He's like, yeah, I know it came from reverse engineered, space technology. Yeah, I know it. So what? And, I want to make another 150 billion, 200 billion. And I said, well, if you get World War III, you know, you're not going to make anything. And he's like, nah, I don't believe you. And so
Well, they,
you could be like Elon Musk. You could be really smart in your vein, but you lack common sense and nuts and bolts common sense. And, people are like, oh, he's so smart. Why? Well-rounded people are smart. I know mechanics that are geniuses. I wish I was as good as them. I'll never be. It's all relative. You know, uh, a writer that creates The Hobbit. I mean, that guy was a genius. So I mean, it's a complex situation. The government's not going to give you much. The military's not going to give you much. America has the most to hide. So they're doing this, Avi Loeb and Mellon and Elizondo and Burchett and everything. They're doing this program they've been doing for 9 years. Oh, let's get Congress involved and talk about it. Well, they're talking about it. They've shown any proof or any saucers, no military expos, no, nothing. And they're always like, we're going to get to the bottom of it. No, you're all spooks. Or you're
yeah.
all puppeteered by spooks. Why should anyone believe you? But the public in America and elsewhere, they're desperate for officials to tell them the truth. You and I aren't.
Which is crazy. Just crazy.
Well, ipso facto. I mean, it's they want Trump to disclose. They want the British Prime Minister, the French Prime Minister. They want the big boys and girls to disclose and say it's all real. They're not going to do it. They have too much to lose. They've all signed agreements that said, if you tattletale, Putin's going to take his new physics weapons and blow you up. So there's a lot of secret agreements going on. You're never going to get it. It's going to crack open, Chris, probably during kinetic war with China or something like that. I think it's inevitable, sadly.
Yeah.
China's going to move on Taiwan. North Korea is going to move on South Korea, and not sure what Putin's going to do.
You want to know
the Russian army is decimated. It's like, you don't need troops anymore.
No.
You don't need tanks.
No.
You don't need those $5 drones. You need one spacecraft with all the bells and whistles, and you can lay waste to all of Scandinavia in a day.
Yes.
That's what Putin has. That's what we have. We'll win the war, America. Oh, yeah. At what cost?
I think they're already using low-tech or low-yield nukes. There were some explosions that occurred throughout the Ukraine-Russian war, and you just look at it and you go, this is too much like a mushroom cloud. You saw little plasma strands coming from the explosion and everything else.
They have tactical nuclear weapons. We've had them for 30 years, I think, or more.
Oh, easy.
And the radiation dissipates within 72 hours completely.
Yeah. Joseph Farrell brought up.
So, but it's on a tactical level, and I'll tell you why. Tactical nukes, number one, they're more useful than a giant thermonuclear warhead. Those are big, dirty, indiscriminate weapons. Stupid. They knew that in the 60s. They had to make something smaller. Hello? Hello?
I lost you for a second. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
So you were saying about tactical nukes.
Yeah.
And how I remember reading Dr. Joseph Farrell. He brought up Operation Dominic and Ripple technology all the way back in 1963, which basically said, we've got a clean nuke. Why wouldn't they use it? Why would anybody assume that this technology hasn't even been developed over the past 8 decades?
Ripple technology had to do with the big thermonuclear weapons. But I know they have tactical nukes of various sizes that are useful, and the radiation dissipates in 72 hours. Iran had some. Everyone knew that for 15 years. That's why we had to go to war with them big time. Still are today. They have some exotic weapons, probably from China. The big no-no, China shouldn't have done that. And now China is suffering from oil too. It's very stupid of them, I think. So, and this is new physics weapons. No, you don't give it. Once you have a totalitarian government mixed with a fundamentalist caliphate, boy, diplomacy doesn't work. It's always good to try. I work with diplomats in my think tanks. It's always good to try. You can try it with the Russians. Very difficult. They're either black or white. They either want to win or kill you or something. It's really not good. But
well, what are they doing now? It just seems like they're slow walking.
But with Iran, no, you can't negotiate with them because they really do believe that they're Allah's chosen ones, and they need to cleanse the earth of, the evil West and the great Satan of Israel and the United States and all the West. I mean, you can't reason with that mindset. So it's kinetic war or nothing. And so the problem is the geography of Iran and everything else. It just makes it extremely difficult to do warfare. They know that. It was that way in ancient times. Great mountain ranges were a hindrance. I mean, Hannibal had to go over the Alps with elephants, but that was very costly. It's so, I don't know what the answer is with Iran. Trump thinks he can make secret deals and handshake deals with those people. I can't believe he would be that stupid. He's got good advisors and people that would tell him that you can't deal with these people. So, but the optics of the press and CNN and Fox News, it's all junk. So you can't really get an idea what's really going on under the table. I'm sure they're negotiating, stop being a rogue nation and we'll cooperate, and we got to do that. But Iran, oh boy, that's a mess. The Russians, you kind of understand more what you're dealing with. They have some European affinity. They always have. That's China wants the eastern portion of Russia, Lake Baikal and Manchuria for resources, water. The Russians, but Putin has to keep the war going. He's got to stay in power. There's good articles all over the place about that. You can read them. But everyone's like, oh, he's almost defeated. I'm like, you got to be out of
here. No way. This NATO summit.
Yeah, troops and tanks, trench warfare, even with drones. Drones are new, big deal. Okay, AI drones, kind of cool, or whatever. But that's 1915. Tanks,
essentially.
They had tanks in World War I, a few, a few airplanes and missiles and things. You're doing trench warfare for 4 years? It's stupid. It's madness, and you can't. In other words, there's a fund. Russia has a fund, and I don't know where it is. International Bank of Settlements somewhere. They have got a fund of billions, and they're like, give it to Ukraine, they'll beat the Russians. It's like, oh no, because Putin will retaliate. So you give them that money, you give them too many of your weapons. America gave them the shittiest tanks we had, and
I know
Scuds and Patriot missiles. Big deal. Those are 1940s style weapons. You can't. America and Europe, and using secret technology, we could have given the Ukrainians the ability to win that war in a week.
And vice versa. Russia could have won that war in a week if they started to use their exotic
broke the secret agreement. We're going to use our new physics weapons, and we'll sink volcanoes and start giant tsunamis that'll hit America, and they can do it.
Yes, they can.
Once the tsunami's in play, you can't stop it. In other words, there's a rumor. I mean, it's not a rumor. I think it's true. But Russia's got a frequency weapon just like we do.
Yeah.
And they can attack fault lines. So there's a big fault line near the Canary Islands, and there's a volcano there. The Russians threatened somebody, I think it's English. It came from England, I think, and said, you mess around with us in what you're doing over here, we'll attack that fault line, sink that volcano. The resulting tsunami is expected to hit the coast of the United States and the Caribbean and go 30 miles inland. It'll go across Florida, hit the Gulf of Mexico, and come all the way back over Florida. Bye-bye, Florida. Done. That's the kind of scale of weapons we're dealing with now. I've heard of matter transformation technologies where you can turn all carbon life into silica. Hoo boy.
I thought that was interesting that you should say that. Turning it into silica.
Yeah. There's silica-based life forms out in the universe.
Yes.
Star Trek in the 60s, they went to the underground tunnels of a mining operation, interesting, and they found these spheres of silicon, which is a little different, but same idea. There's a lot of rock mineral-based life forms out there.
Correct.
Telling us the truth in the 60s about a lot of things. So, yeah. So what I think it is, Chris, personally, that technology came from the stars, obviously, I think, and it was something to do with terraforming. Do you remember the Wrath of Khan movie, the Star Trek movie?
Who can forget?
Genesis. That's a terraforming technology. What do they say in the movie? It can be used as a weapon. I don't think that was a coincidence. Gene Roddenberry was definitely in the know. He was definitely in the know. I'll stake that till the day I die, And so they take this technology that's used for terraforming planets and they use it wrongly. They switch it in reverse, and instead of creating carbon life out of silica, they do the opposite. And so this is what we're doing. We're taking, it's throughout history, a bow and arrow, you can hunt meat for your family or kill someone. Same thing with a hammer or an axe.
Right.
A technology that's used for benign purposes can easily be transformed into a weapon.
It seems as though that we are repeating history.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you look at all of these ancient texts and mythologies, they talk about this level of destruction all the time.
Yep.
And
the Kali
Epic of
Yuga,
Ninurta.
the Yuga cycles.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And you brought up terraforming, which is interesting because I wanted to ask you, you may or may not want to comment, or you may or may not know, but in your circles, what on earth is going on with this stratospheric aerosol injections, otherwise known as chemtrails? Where I am, the skies are a constant white. They're always being sprayed. Even after a storm, when the clouds break, you still see the lines in the sky. And now in New York, we have essentially, due to all of the spraying, we have sun dogs. Now, sun dogs, if you're ever in the Arctic, you've got the sun, and then it looks like two giant circles around the sun, and it almost looks like triple suns in some cases. We've got that here in New York.
Yeah. So, number one, jets emit an exhaust that has a lot of water in it. It's a product of combustion. That's the white things you're seeing in the sky. The Air Force admits it's been doing some chemtrailing. There's probably multiple programs with multiple agendas. But I know they've been seeding the atmosphere of the Earth to make it harder for your UFO to come in. It makes it easier for us to track it. Look up the Ice Cube Neutrino Tracking System by Raytheon in Antarctica. That is exactly what it's engaged with. So one thing of chemtrailing is a national security. It is. We have threats out there. It's true. A lot of nice people too, but then a lot of bad people. All the polarities, a lot of indifferent people. You guys are all right, but we'll blow you up anyway. So that's one purpose of chemtrails, is to ionize and I don't know, powdered aluminum and other things they put up there. It's really not a good idea, but it helps us to track things in the atmosphere. Why we need that still is a mystery to me, but I know that was a thing at least. But I'm not an expert on chemtrails. There's other people that study it to death. It's important, but to me, it's not in my top 10 list.
Yeah, I was just wondering because it's so prevalent where I am. It's remarkable that nobody can connect any of these dots. And I've done some research. I poked AI every once in a while about this kind of thing. And AI said a couple of different outcomes for this were possible. Number one, they wanted to do essentially what you said, it's a massive, massive detection system that anybody can access on the deep state side, including down to the individual and their heartbeat. And they can do that. They've got that technology already with Wi-Fi. They can detect
Yeah.
individual personalized heartbeats.
They
The
don't
other, go ahead.
they don't need your cell phone to track you.
No.
Every human, uh, we're electrical. Our systems are electrical. So our nervous system's electrical. It creates a kind of a mild torsion field, and that has a frequency. Everyone and every animal, every living thing on in the universe, on planet Earth, emits a unique frequency. That's sort of like, you meet a girl and oh wow, our vibes. Oh yeah.
Oh, butterflies. Yeah.
So your vibes match. I mean, my wife and I are like that. We were perfectly suited for one another. So they can track you that way. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
No, the other aspect that AI came up with is not only for tracking, but if you inject enough of this stuff, whatever it is, I'm not claiming to know what it is, into the atmosphere, that will act as a shield against a potential debris field that Earth is moving through, because you have all these ancient myths that say that there's some planet out there and planet X is on this massive 3,000-year elliptical orbit and so on. I can sort of buy that argument that you're just trying to create enough stuff in the atmosphere on a global industrial scale to whittle away any meteors or asteroids that would come to a little bit too close to Earth.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
But I won't say something I don't know. Or
absolutely.
um, I would think there's other technologies other than chemtrailing in order to do that
Yeah.
free. Um, I know we can. I know we have tractor beams grab an asteroid and do things. In ancient times, they said when all else fails, you throw rocks. And so the legends of Atlantis and everything. They said the comets appeared. That's cheap and easy. You're in orbit and you're like, I'm going to teach these guys a lesson. You just grab a hold of an asteroid somewhere, you bring it, you throw it, just like throwing a big sling with a rock.
David Goliath.
Boom. Pretty cheap weapon, cheap and destructive. So, war's dirty and cosmic war is no different. So, debris fields, Nibiru. I don't know. Your guess is
Yeah.
really fine.
Yeah. Just wondering if you heard anything in your circles. That's the only reason why I
No,
asked.
my circles don't get into the wilder theories. We do get into the technology,
Mm.
And everyone's on the same page. But you get into legends and myths and ancient history. Most of these guys are
Just
military.
glaze over.
They're quantum physicists. They're just like, what are you talking about?
I could totally validate that. I worked in New York City.
They don't know their military history. Even some of the military guys, they didn't have time. They did their careers, and it's like, hey, General, do you know about the Battle of Xerxes? And they're like, well, no. And so there's some sort of parable or something you can bring to the fore that helps illustrate a point. And so they hired nerds like me. I know UFO history and also military history and ancient history. It's amazing. I mean, people don't know where technologies come from. They think it's all brand new. It's like, I don't think so.
No, not at all. I think honestly that a lot of what you see out there today or in the purpose of fraternal organizations is to preserve or find ancient technology. Like you said, they drip, drip, drip every once in a while. And I always bring this analogy up that how has American life changed all that much from, let's say, the 1950s until now? You're still living in an apartment. You're still driving a car. You're still vacuuming. Oh, you've got a TV that you can watch anything you want on. Guess what? You had that back then too. Oh, now I've got a cell phone. Great. Now I can be tracked if I wanted to by local law enforcement, but they don't really need to.
They
Where
don't have access to the, tracking someone's biosignature. They don't have that. Only the
Well, no, they don't have that aspect.
CIA does.
Yeah.
DIA, they do. But we have a lot more gadgets now.
Exactly, gadgets. So we
You
can watch
know,
cat videos.
some things are better. Racism is better, at least overtly. Covertly, I don't know. There probably still as many racists. But, life has changed a lot. Cars have changed a lot. They lack a lot of soul. I collect old cars from the 50s. And,
I know.
that
I'm in the market for a new car, and let me tell you something. Every car nowadays.
email me. I can.
Oh, that's great. I will. So every new car these days on the steering column has a
Yeah.
little strip. It's like this big. It's maybe
Yep.
3 or 4 inches. And they have 2 infrared beams that shoot into your eyeballs to
Yep.
monitor you.
Yeah, my wife's Mercedes has that. It's unbelievably annoying.
Yes.
It says
And
Mercedes AI, and I'm like, God, dude, it's
exactly.
a terrible system.
And if you read the terms and conditions, they say that they sell off this information to third parties, but they don't tell you who the third party is.
Nobody cares anymore because it's
insane.
standard operating. They've normalized it. See, when you have new technology that's surveillance oriented or maybe not that kosher, you slowly normalize it. Because if you talk to young people today, they're like, I know they track me on my phone. I know my car looks at me, and I don't care.
I do.
You and I do, but there's no way around it. You can't get around it. I bought a Lincoln SUV. It does the same thing. It jerks the steering wheel out of the lane, and it does some weird thing. I'm sure it's looking at my eyes somewhere, but there's nothing you can do. Some people tape over that. I
heard Catherine Austin Fitz does that. She taped over it.
Tape over it with
electrical. And she got all kinds of warnings. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we round out here, we're almost at an hour and 30 minutes. And I told you I'd stick to an hour and 30 minutes, and that's it, because you've got other things to do besides talk to some yokel in New York.
No, I'm fine. I'm not doing anything.
Where can we find some of the more cutting edge technology that's about to come out? And what I mean by that is, what companies should we be looking at? Where is the money going from Congress, especially since you came out with that all-encompassing omnibus of acronyms and businesses out there?
Right. So the new startups, there's a national security 100 list of this year. Look at those guys. The big AI companies, but they're just, AI right now, I'll argue this with everyone. It's just a fancy algorithm with a human-like interface. It's not genuine.
100%.
Quantum will be. Everyone's like, Anthropic is, and I'm like, no, it's not. It gets simple questions wrong. I test all the AIs. They're bullshit. Corporations get a much better version. Goldman Sachs or whoever on Wall Street, they'll pay $100 million for an AI that's 1,000 times better than anything the public gets, but it's not quantum. Quantum AI will change everything. And yes, to your point, it is very curious. All of a sudden, it seems, it's not, but it seems all of a sudden that in several countries, the populations are going down dramatically. South Korea, Japan, other places, United States, I think, too.
Oh, yeah.
To some degree. And you get to wonder, I wonder if those black hats really want to depopulate everyone. Well, quantum AI can do it. AI, a really good quantum AI can develop viruses, a new one every, hour. Let them out before anyone in the CDC or anyone on the earth can come up with a vaccine or anything. So quick, and hundreds of them, thousands. And adios. And unless you've had a special vaccine, if you're an insider or somebody VIP or somebody, you're gone. Because let's think like Bond villains. You and I are in charge of the deep state. Okay, America's top dog. Fuck the royals. They answer to us now, which I think they do. A lot of World War II was about that.
I think the royals are still in control in a lot of ways.
A lot of things, but we're top dogs. So what's controllable? It depends on your contracts with ET Star Nations and what they want. but they want something more stable than what we have here. I mean, it's just a mess. India's a mess. There's 10,000 languages, 10,000 religions. You know, nothing gets done. You know, it's insane. So, from an evil Bond villain point of view, yeah, it's like the Georgia Guidestones. Get it down to 500 million, maybe a billion. You can manage that. You know, reproduce at a constant rate, but we don't need 8 billion. And, you know, resources, and the Mother Earth heals. Everyone wants that because that's good for business. And, you know, commerce, as above, so below. It's good for business. And because a lot of people come here and they're like, I want 100 giraffes and 10 million mangoes. Okay, we'll get it done. Are you sure you want 10 million? All right. So, you know, it makes sense in a grim way that way, because it might take 50 years or 75 years to do, maybe less. See, with the virus thing, that COVID, you know, some people say that was a dry run. That gumped up the works big time. Now, a lot of us knew it was a leaked bioweapon, but nobody believed us. They still don't. I mean, they think
How could you not look at it that way?
Yeah.
I mean, when
Right.
everybody that blames China, I think that is such a BS argument, because guess
Yes
what?
and no.
Well,
The
you got
word is,
Fauci outsourcing the tech,
okay,
right?
the rumor is, you know, around everywhere, is that there were many patents. Canada, United States, UK,
Right.
you know, Germany. People had modified it, modified it, modified it. And the Chinese modified it even more. And some disgruntled guy threw it at a train station, a test tube or something, maybe. You know, whatever. It got out there first. I'm pretty sure of that. So it's one guy's fault, but you know, it shows you, and it mutated. Viruses mutate when they hit the
Of
environment.
course.
So
Yeah.
by the time it got to the U.S., it was pretty mild. Everyone says, "Oh, everybody died," and it's like, well, hard to find statistics that are reliable. I didn't get sick. I didn't take the vax.
I didn't either.
Either. You know, we didn't get sick. None of my friends got sick.
Nope.
My friends' parents in their 90s or 80s, they got sick, but it's like, okay, you're in your 80s or 90s. I mean, Jesus, what wouldn't? My mother survived it. She's 91 today.
My parents had it. They're in their 70s. They survived it. You know how they survived it? They did what I told them to do, and that was to take a lot of Manuka honey to alleviate those symptoms. And it did. It worked. It took them a while, but
Yeah. I think a lot of the vaccines they gave us were placebos to make people calm down. You know, it might have been a benign compound. Everyone thinks, oh, they put stuff in our bloodstream, and it's like, well, maybe, but you don't really need to do that to control a population. You don't need to vax everybody. There are other technologies. The media controls people's minds, religions, other things. There are other ways to do it. I think it was more of a benign thing, and but it showed how compliant.
Oh, for sure.
People were.
For sure. I was
in
so
DC,
upset.
There were guys going around with American flags. I'll never forget it. There was, like, you know, guys in their 30s with masks, you know, 10 masks on, and pointing at me, dissident, without my mask. I just flipped them the bird, you know, fuck you. And
Yes.
there are people still wearing masks in DC.
Oh, there's still people wearing masks up here in their cars alone with the windows up.
I'm sorry, it's an IQ test.
It totally is. And it's a compliance test, because a lot of the supposed intelligentsia, especially in New York, the double masks, wearing masks. I remember getting into fights with people in New York during COVID, and I would go, okay, please explain this to me. I have to wear a mask to go into a bar or a restaurant, but as soon as I sit down at a high top table, I can take it off, and the virus is completely benign. Nobody has to worry about it.
None of it makes sense.
No, of course.
They mess with people's heads, and it's pretty easy to do, sadly. You can do it. I mean, you know.
Do you think that's the next battleground, people's minds?
No, it's been going on forever. Since the advent of religions and, you know.
No, I mean more so
superstition and, you know, everything, that you've been fucking with people's minds. In college, I was a very good prankster. I'm very creative. I used to mess with people's minds all the time. I remember one guy, you know, in my
Did you
fraternity,
dose them with acid or
the
something?
the the light in the bathroom was fluorescent, and it would go zzz all night long. So I recorded it, and I put it in his bedroom, and I put it on. And he woke up and went in, but the light was off, and so he's turning it on and off and on. And he starts screaming. He's like, I'm hearing it in my head. And I was like, holy shit.
And of course, you said, I don't hear anything.
Yeah, you mess with people's minds. It's so easy to do. I thought it was fun back then, but now it's like, oh wow, yikes! It's pretty easy to do. It's sad. Cult religions, cults, self-help programs, 12-step programs. These are all cults. They mess with people's minds. It's all in your mind. You'll never have an end to that argument because there'll always be the true believers. The concept of the true believer. It's like Christianity. I love my friends. They're believers in religion. I respect that. I don't believe in God myself, never have. But you can't argue your point, that they're, it's all silliness and mind control. That, because they put so much of their reality stock in it. So it's like COVID. Don't argue with a masked person. You'll never get any ground.
No.
No, you shouldn't argue with anyone who is fundamentally, set in their ways. Most people like easy black and white answers to everything, and everything in the cosmos, I guarantee you, is a shade of gray. Trillions of shades of gray, and it's but people don't like that. They like easy black and white answers to everything.
I think that's a sign of spiritual maturity and metaphysical maturity too. I think most of the planet Earth is very infantile. Yeah. They're not ready for anything.
I wrote this into a paper, a white paper for the U.S. government, who probably will never read it. But we wrote, every one of us in my think tank wrote a piece. And I put in there a clause. I said, look, disclosure is going to disrupt everything. There's no doubt. But religions can handle it because you got to couch it in a certain way to people. And I came up with the idea to say, which is a story I heard, which makes sense to me personally. And that is, there are as many spiritual systems in the universe as there are stars in the sky. How can that not broaden our spiritual horizons on Earth?
It makes complete sense to me.
You can broaden your spirituality, if you're a Buddhist or a Christian or whatever. In Japan they worship their ancestors. It doesn't matter. You can adapt new ideas. And it's not this threat. It might be a threat to the Vatican because it's nothing but a corporation and a bank with its own military, by the way, papal armies of old. Darn those Templars and Cathars, we're going to, all those Druid witches, we're going to burn them. Inquisition, God. And I have colleagues who are working with the Vatican on disclosure. And I'm like, don't do it. You're dealing with the foxes who run the hen house. Don't do it. Don't go to government people who, with Avi Loeb, and they try to cross the aisle. I understand diplomacy. I've tried with my cousin Chris Mellon, and there's no soap. I mean,
certain people,
they have a different mindset. They're like, we're officials. We've been given the green light. We have NDAs, so we can't do much. But you need to, by golly, and they had that authoritarian, Age of Disclosure documentary. And it was really boring and just talking heads. And you listen to us, damn it.
Yeah. Do you think we'll ever get
no
true
more
disclosure?
Proof than anyone else? You and me getting up here and saying, "Hey, there's a flying saucer out behind my window. It's delivering ice cream." They can't prove anything. They've got one hand and one leg tied behind their backs. What kind of disclosure movement is that?
It's not a disclosure movement. It's nonsense. It's a
movement. Slow it down. More mud. Let's talk about radiation signatures like they do at the Soul Foundation. They don't do shit. Jacques Vallée has had his whole 80-year life to do something. No, he's got an NDA. And they all want to be worshipped as heroes. They really do. This is very dangerous. Mellon and the way he talks and the way he writes, he's unhinged. I mean, I'm unhinged too. I admit it. But the people who don't realize they are, that's very, very dangerous. And they're like, you people, Jack Sarfatti and all you dissidents, it's what he calls us, dissidents. And I'm like, proud to be a dissident. It's like, we just want more transparency. The public can't do anything about the transnational finances and the weapons sales and the bank fraud and everything. You can't do anything about that. But they should know about where they came from and who we're dealing with and what's going on with technology and the military. I mean, don't give our military secrets away, but come on, in this stupid argument about anti-gravity and life in the universe. I mean, there's still people that don't believe in it.
Which is remarkable.
You can't make anything anti-gravitic. I can prove it. It's like there's always a theorem to prove and disprove. That's why physics are, they're helpful in one sense, but this is really a sociological and historical problem.
Do you think we'll ever really get true disclosure?
They will someday.
Yeah.
I'll be dead. In your lifetime, you might see it. But
maybe
it takes time to filter in because a lot of people, no problem. But there's the greatest number of people around the world, it's going to take time to sink in. And that's okay. You don't need everybody on the same page all at once. In fact, it's probably better to not have everybody. I argue that too in my white paper. It's like not that many people are going to believe it. Maybe a couple 100 million at most. But you don't need all 8 billion people. Let people come to it on their own pace. They don't want to do it in this lifetime. That's no big deal. Wait till the next or the next.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Don't do it that way. But you're going to get the basics out in the next 20 years. Yeah, we're dealing with ET. Yeah, sure. Yeah, we've gleaned weapons. So what? America's number one. And our Army and Navy and Marines and everybody, Coast Guard, they need the best. I agree with that. I support the military. We'd be dead without it. The liberals who think we can live without militaries and, conservative ideals and, mixed with liberal ideals, you can't. You got to have both and pull it, in balance. Everyone wants utopia. And it's like utopia would be really, really boring, number one. But there's no real utopias out in the universe. Sure, if you're, 10th dimensional, okay. There's always more to learn, and there's always people to learn from, and there's consternation everywhere, disagreement. My point is, a lot of people will be fine with disclosure. This whole thing, public can't handle it. Number one, they're going to have to. Number two, people will do it at their own pace. Okay, there's aliens, so what? I got to go back to varnishing my boat. So what? It doesn't affect me. Well, it does, but people will be angry about the money that the deep state and the national security state stole, not absconded with, quasi-legally under the National Security Act. So, you voted for it, or it just got pushed through. There's, governments are corrupt. Every single government is corrupt, from the smallest town to the biggest government in the world. It doesn't matter. Corruption is how politics and governments work. It's the lubrication. The gears need lube. It's like a transmission. You got to have fluid in it. It's just the way things work. And everyone's like, oh, we got to clean up corruption in Washington. I'm like, no, you're not. And why would you ever do it?
Why would anybody ever think it could be?
It's going to seize up. It needs the oil of corruption and money to keep things going. It's just the way they work. So we have to make agreements with people in the deep state. They're going on now. I'm convinced of that. I hear rumors from time to time. I'm not privy to it, but you got to work with people. Not everyone in the deep state is an evil Bond villain. Those are the minority. There's a lot of good people, engineers, and everybody. Yeah. Down to auto mechanics. Well, they're read into a sergeant who's an auto mechanic. He works at a hangar at Area 51 S4. So, but the human race does deserve the basic human rights, which is you need to know who we are, where we came from, how we evolved, who's coming and going, what's going on, the big basics.
Right.
You don't have to tell them how the technology of the weapons work. You just have to be somewhat more transparent. And I think even Avi Loeb and all those people, they want more transparency, but they also know the repercussions from that. So everything seems to be a catch-22 situation down the line, which is very frustrating. But there's no other way to couch it, no other word to couch it in. We're going to have to deal with it. We're going to have to make deals with people. We're going to have to forgive a lot of people. You know what? You're a psychopath. You kill people. But you know what? We forgive you. Now you got to do a little jail time, but we're not going to. Some of the worst people need to have jail time, but who's going to run the programs and other thing like that? You have to work. It's like Project Paperclip. Some of those Nazis were nasty people, but we had to work with them. The Russians really did want to conquer the world with communism and everything. It's not good. Neither is pure fascism. You want something in the middle. The United States has always had a very religious Christian, cowboy, quasi-fascist bent to it since the get-go. And a lot of people, the liberals in California, my mother is a limousine liberal, they don't see that. They think, oh, we can have just a liberal country. You can't, because that's too far off in one polarity. You need to be in the middle. A little bit more to the right, a little bit more to the left sometimes, but generally speaking, in the middle. People don't like that. They want extremes, especially now. And so the deep state wants an extreme fascism to control all this. Hey, you can't control it. The technology has a life of its own. It's pervasive in society. We use it every day. It's in our watches and whatever. It's everywhere. So you can't control it. You can try, but there needs to be a balance. We're never going to be a perfect world, not for a couple hundred years, probably, till we're class 1 on the Kardashev scale, but we need to strive towards that because we want to be able to communicate with people, and we want to, over time, be less fascist and more balanced. The world is more off to the negative side for a long time. Wars, pestilence, genocide, injustice. You want to bring it back to the middle. Everyone's like, oh, I want a positive utopia. And I'll be like, that's not.
Where's the progress in that?
You're going to have to wait for that because you're going to have to earn it. And that's another thing. It's like civilizations in the cosmos fail all the time. They fail. They're too weak. Not creative enough. They don't do the right things. Despite advisors and like we have gentle advisors, and the bad guys always run right over them with a Mack truck. And they couldn't quite do it on planet Earth, but boy, they've tried. The Germans won World War II outright, and the Nazis kind of won, but not the German state. It might be a different world, like Man in the High Castle. But then that becomes inefficient because then you're creating more dissidents and rebels and, people like that. I mean, the Nazis had a hell of a time in their conquered lands keeping order. There were so many, saboteurs and dissidents, and they had to expend an enormous amount of energy and troops and police and everything to do that. And they would shoot 100 people if one person did a wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But it becomes really tiring. And I think we're seeing some of the fatigue of that now. Before you'd see a scientist missing and everyone would be like, oh, that story would be gone in a day. This story stuck around. It was 20, 25, maybe more. And they're starting to bring up the old cases. And it got traction in the news. That's interesting to me. Someone green-lighted that and said, no, make it real this time. Make it significant that people remember it. And they will for a while, the average person. But, us nerds, we won't forget it. That's a progressive push somewhere. There are
Well, I can only hope that it continues. Because there are enough
The
smart
media
people.
coverage, not the murders, obviously.
Well, yeah, right. We don't want, right, of course, yes, coverage. We want more light to be brought onto this. I'm going to make one final point. And when we spoke last time, you said that we had to taper the disclosure, and I said, let's rip the Band-Aid off. I'm glad to see that you've come around to my side, that we need to start having everybody aware of this stuff.
It's never going to be one big swoop.
I wish it was, but I know it's not.
I kind of do as well, because the healing will be faster, but we'll get somewhere in the middle. But I think other nations will disclose with proof. Here's our flying school bus. Guess what? Anti-gravity. They'll show it, and America will double down on security, double down on lies, double down, triple down, quadruple down, like in Vegas, and they're just going to lose the whole pile of chips eventually.
Yeah.
Because the French military tried to do it once with a few of them. Some guy in Israel came forward and said, no, there's Galactic Federation of Light Beer out there. And the Canadian Paul Hellyer came out. I mean, they've tried to do it, but America keeps, that's why they're doing this dog and pony show on Capitol Hill with Avi Loeb. They're trying to keep the lid on and do it very slowly and only do so much. That is a fool's errand in the long run. That would have worked 30 years ago. It's not going to work today. And other nations are going to do it for us. So,
Interesting.
Trump is a fool. The NSC Council are foolish to choose Avi Loeb and the team players and, do the deep state bidding. That's foolish, because it's going to bite your ass in the end. It's just going to make it worse. It's going to make disclosure much worse.
I would love to see some kind of micronation come out with this stuff. Some nation that nobody has ever heard of, but the United States greenlit it.
You need France, England, Germany to do it. Yeah. With maybe Russia, China. Xi might do it just to embarrass us. Oh, you mean old Americans, you have all the technology. Here's a UFO, with Chinese Army, insignia. And we'll be like, oh, there are no UFOs. It's all a lie. But in a few weeks, the whole public watching it on the news will be like, aha, Area 51, S4, Balbazar was telling the truth. Yay! And the dominoes will start falling. Once the dominoes start falling, there's no way to stop it.
Right.
They've kept the dominoes from falling. We might have gotten one, a few taps of a domino here and there, but it's not enough to. Once it's got enough horsepower that it starts the domino trail, there's no stopping it. And then we're going to be like, well, we had to keep the secrecy for national security. Okay, yes, some, but then the skullduggery will come out, and it's a nasty, corrupt world, but we did a lot of things that were unsavory, and it's not very American, actually. It is and it isn't.
Yeah.
But most people have a vision of America as being, we go in and we rebuild countries after we blow them up.
It's the least we can do.
And not all this secret stuff. But there's too many people working on disclosure topics. You got Graham Hancock, you got Greer, you got a million other people on YouTube now. 30 years ago, there was hardly anything. Talking about all kinds of subjects. Hey, these megaliths don't make any sense. Wait, stone is a technology. Wait, plasma can be sentient? They're all working on these things, and it's starting to get out of hand. 30 years ago, there was none of this. None of it, very little. Now it's everywhere. There's more mud in the river. There's more crap. There's more unicorn cartoons and SpongeBob SquarePants. But it's gonna start popping, because it's not just UFOs and ET pilots landing on Earth. No, it's everything. Our technology, our biology, our zoology, everything on planet Earth, the commerce, the ancient history, the megaliths, telluric energy, the everything. A million subjects that's been miraculously kept from the general public, except for a few nerdy scholars who dig into it and go, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. And there's a consensus. there was a famous philosopher who said it. I don't know, Voltaire or somebody. He said, you can't deal with the consensus crowd. It's like crabs in the bucket. They'll claw you down. How dare you advance over me? It has to do with, the philosopher said, if you have a certain IQ, let's say 90, which is above the world average of 80, that's the real average, the CIA said. If you have an IQ 90, you're not able to comprehend anybody above you. You'll comprehend up to 90 or 100 where your level is. Anything above that, it won't filter in. I don't know if that's wholly true, but that's what whoever quoted this was trying to say. You can't deal with certain people.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I don't go around to, I don't in the gas station start giving lectures to people. If people ask me a question, I'll give them an answer based on their knowledge base. Maybe a little more, but you can't say, oh, the world is run by a transnational mixture of all kinds of weird people. They won't believe it. There's nothing in their reality, their hard surface reality. You have to be gentle with that. But, disclosure is going to be messy. It already is messy. Scientists have died. Other people have died. Careers ruined, other things, horrible things. And it continues to be messy, but it's imbalanced. And it's like I always say, an imbalanced engine, if it's a V8 engine and it's only running on 5 cylinders, it's dancing around and everything. Eventually, if you run it at high power, it's going to blow apart. You need an engine to be balanced. Our reality is imbalanced. It's been that way for probably 12,000 years. It's a great flood. Makes sense. But it's really, 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 really bad right now. It's really bad. And now they're talking about World War III and using weapons to split the earth in half, literally. And so there's a lot of investment in the human race and Earth by other star nations. This is a laboratory, a school. They're not going to let us destroy the Earth. We might be able to kill ourselves, but not the Earth.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point before, too, that disclosure doesn't necessarily mean that people will comprehend it on one single timeline, because there's a reincarnation element to all of this, too.
Oh, God, you're going to get into that, and that's the standard operating procedure in the universe. Jesus said it. Okay, I'm not a religious scholar, but Jesus said it. I have resurrected. This, too, you can do.
Correct.
You're just like me. Because I'm just, Joe Blow. Okay, maybe I'm from another star system, but I'm a human being like you. I've incarnated here from somewhere else, and I'm trying to help out. Pontius Pilate's a dick, but the Romans are pricks. But I'm trying. And so there's been a lot of missionaries like that on planet Earth. There still are, Gandhi and others. Probably answer to a higher technology and power, intelligence somewhere. And everyone's doing their thing. But it's, got to get over this Judeo-Christian, Islamic thing that death is death. It's not. It's not
no.
heaven and everything. No, you go on to the next life. You learn the next and the next. That's how you learn. Patton said it. Napoleon said it. Mozart said it. Henry Ford said it publicly. That's where our genius comes from, is multiple reincarnational lives. Henry Ford thought he was an engineer, he probably was, on the Union Pacific Railroad in the Civil War. A brilliant engineer. Patton said he was a soldier, foot soldier, general, admiral. And he learned it all through his lifetime. Some people focus. I know I was a soldier in my past lives. I know too much about the military. It sinks right in like it's second nature. I've been doing that since I was 7.
Yeah.
My dad used to say, how do you know all this stuff? And I said, I don't know. I must have read it somewhere. I don't know. But it just all sunk in. And one teacher, it's like, God, if you stop reading those books in the library about World War II and Civil War and do your homework, maybe you make something of yourself. Yeah, right. Good to be a C student, people.
Hey, D for diploma.
Bullshit. I know it. I knew it on a soul level. I wasn't aware of it. They were teaching us bullshit.
Yes.
Because it was boring.
Mountains of it.
Right. If you find a subject that you fascinated with, like me, I was fascinated in technology, ships, wars, machinery, mechanics, all that junk, engineering. I was interested in all that. I could, give a shit about everything else. So, I mean, that's how they teach you in Montessori and everything like that. They let the child pick their area of interest. They don't try to force physics down your
Yeah.
throat or trigonometry. If you're not going to be an engineer or navigate a ship, you don't need trig. It's crazy. And then this SAT scores, what one kid's, I knew a kid in college, I swear to God, 750, perfect score, straight A student. Guy could barely tie his shoes. Could barely drive a car. He's like, could you teach me to drive? I never learned. A fucking moron. And that's when I knew. I was at a young age, I was like 21. I was like, what the hell? You're so smart, but you can't build a fire. You can't shoot a gun. You don't know how to do your laundry. He knew nothing.
But that's how these kids are.
A straight A student, he knew nothing. And even when you teach him, he didn't have a knack for anything. People have knack for things. Everyone does. His knack was, physics. And my girlfriend was a physics major in college. I mean, talk about a nerd. Good God. She's like, my Volkswagen is all over the road. I'm like, the suspension is off, the torsion bars. She's like, you don't know. Go to the dealer.
Sure shit. There it is.
That was my thing. I said, this is my thing. That's your thing.
Right.
The clutch is gone. I mean, because they think they're straight A students and PhDs and everything. They think, I can figure anything out. I mean, I love Jack Sarfati and all these physicists. I just do. They're funny and everything, but they take themselves way too seriously. I guarantee you, none of them can change a tire by the side of the road.
Nope. I mean, that kind of mindset is prevalent all throughout the medical industry.
Yeah, it's the left brain mindset.
I butt heads with.
It's lacking. It is the right brain creative mindset. Especially in the deep state, they're all left brains.
Oh, I can imagine.
Well, we don't want any They called my wife at the CIA because she thought independently. She questioned things. And they said, "Oh, you're a philosopher." And they're like, "Don't be a philosopher. They'll throw you out." And she's like, "I quit. After 9 years, I quit." That's what they do. They don't want independent thinkers. They want to follow orders. But we have the thinkers. They're downstairs with ET in the lower levels, below the Pentagon 5 miles.
Yeah, right.
We don't need you. We don't need you. They tried to recruit me. No. I'll tell you a funny story. The CIA has an IQ test, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know who came up with IQ. Probably a German physicist somewhere. I don't even know. It's bullshit. Einstein said it. Creativity is the source of intellect. They have an IQ test. And this is 25 years ago. And I'm with my best friend, and she goes, "Okay, you smart Alex. You're going to take the CIA attitude, says, see who's smarter." So it's a 4-hour test. And I went through a few pages. He's down there, drilling it out, doing notes and math and everything. I'm looking at this and I'm doing some of the logic work. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. This is stupid. This is insane.
Yes.
I finally, out of frustration, I said, forget it. And I just ripped it up into a million pieces. Guess who aced the test? I did.
Of course.
The only way to win is not to play.
Yep.
So if you ace the test the normal way, like doing all the questions right or whatever, the CIA takes you as a GS1 or whatever the fuck it is. But the people who rip it up, the very few people who rip it up, they're the ones who come work with us and in the lower levels, You think out of the box. And I had 2 or 3 people try to recruit me to CIA, and it's like, I'm not a joiner.
Yeah, no.
I don't want to be a spook. There's some people that are spooks. My wife was one of them. I love her. But she wasn't on board with all that bullshit. She was an outsider. She's Spanish. They want people smart in the deep state, not too smart.
No.
Just right.
Right.
Yes, geniuses and engineers are very good and everything. That's fine. But the thinkers, the theorists, that's what they wanted me for. They wanted me in the theorist department. How do we do this? Oh, well, go to Flying Saucer and drop some Delta forces onto Iran or Iraq. They want that, but they don't want people like us who think a little bit too much for ourselves.
I interviewed many, many years ago when I was just out of college. So we're talking at least two
Yeah, they get you in
decades.
college. That's
Not
probably a
me.
trick.
Not me. Because I was working through college. I was a regular strap hanger.
Good for you.
And so I interviewed with the FBI. I passed the first two tests. The second test was like you said, it was like an LSAT. It was like a logic exam. And I hate logic. I hate if P, therefore Q, if and only if R. You can go kiss my ass with all that stuff. And so I finally make it to the third round. And I get in there and it's an interview. I was asked two questions. Do you speak Farsi? I said no. Do you belong to any fraternal organizations when you were in college? I said no. And they said, okay, thank you very much. And that was it.
Yeah.
Then I had a friend of mine who eventually took me because he knew somebody in the FBI building in New York. And we went for a tour and we met her up there. We went through the white collar crime division. And there was the guy that interviewed me. And I went right up to him and I said, I don't know if you remember me, but, I went through the whole thing. Mortified, didn't know what to do. He blushed. He didn't know what to say. He certainly didn't expect me in there. So these people, they don't have any social skills. They want people that fill out pieces of paper wherever they're told to fill it out. They want box checkers. They don't want anybody to truly question anything. They want people to go along with the narrative, and that is that. And it's sad. So
Well,
I'll leave it with this as we're coming to 2 hours. I'm horribly over time.
the real quick, the
Yeah,
deep
go
state
ahead.
is looking for all kinds of people, but the secret societies, the CIA, other things, they start in colleges. And it's not just Ivy League college like Yale, Skull and Bones. My grandfather was Scroll and Key. Those are both linked to the Thule Society of Germany. Long story. But I found at UVA there were several secret societies.
Oh, yeah. My sister went
So
there.
I figured that out. I did a lot of research and everything, and it's like nobody knows the members. They supposedly do all these good deeds and everything. And I'm like, well, I smell a rat. So what they do is they scour colleges, the good ones, not just Ivy Leagues, but the good colleges. They set up these secret societies. They invite kids to cocktail parties. They kiss your ass, and they're like. Then they invite them to another cocktail party, and they're like, "Oh, do you admire Hitler? And what do you think of black people? And if you're a white, businessman, supremacist, or even just somebody who can keep secrets and want to be part of the elite, they recruit you there."
Yeah, that's true.
UVA Seven Society and the Imp Society. These are all deep state connected, secret societies. Why so secret if you do good deeds? And the only way to find out who was in it is the Seven Society. It's on your gravestone that you were seven.
Really?
It's a national security thing as well. I get that, but it's also you're recruiting people of a mindset. Conservative kids. The coat and tie fraternity tried to recruit me and my friend because we're from rich old money families, committee of 300, whatever. And they wrote us hard. You got to join. You got to wear a coat and tie. I said, fuck wearing a coat and tie. No way, man. And we didn't. And I figured it out. That particular fraternity, the coat and tie boys, were feeding certain people into these secret societies.
Yeah, that's well known.
At UVA.
Yeah.
Thought, aha. Because I called him up one day and I said, hey, how you doing? I'm an alumni. How many of you guys turn out to be the sevens or the imps or the whatever? And they're like, oh, quite a few. The guy was an idiot. He was 20 years old. That's how they get young kids that age to join the CIA and the, DIA and whatever. They want smart kids that can be molded. But they don't want people like you and me because we think far out of the box and we think for ourselves and we question everything. No, they don't want that. They want them smart and pliable, just not too smart.
Right.
And so it's a fine line. They don't take everyone. It's the same way the Cosmos Club here in DC in the old days did that. Oh, you're a scientist and astronomer. I wonder. What do you think about this? Are you a fan of Joseph Goebbels? Like, well, he wasn't that bad. He liked modern art, and I'm like, aha, we got one. So they're very careful about how they mold these people, and of course they use psychological tricks, you name it. Probably psychotronic weapons.
Yeah.
Here, look into this mirror.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not going to work on you, me, or other people in the disclosure movement. We're too wacky. That only works on people who are, three-quarter. It's what I call three-quarter person. Really smart, really capable, hardworking. I'm a CEO. You're only a three-quarter person because, you don't believe in the metaphysics and philosophy and all that weird stuff that goes along with the UFO topic. They want that, but they want to be able to mold people like clay. And I'm a chunk of rough black granite. You're not going to mold me into shit. Schools tried. The teachers yelled at me. The priests yelled at me. And I told them all to fuck off. They don't want the fuck off people. Oh no. And they tried to do that with my wife. They tried to mold her, and every year she became more and more disgruntled, like a lot of people at the CIA. And then she met me, and I was like, "Hey, guess what?" And she looked up the Majestic 12 files, and it's on the CIA internal server. And it triggered a silent alarm. The assistant director came to see her, it was a woman, and said, "Don't worry, it's no big deal. Everyone, some people are curious. Now you know. Respect your oath. Have a nice day."
Wow.
And that's why, I didn't need confirmation, but it really gave me that last 1% of confirmation.
Yeah.
It's on their internal server. Everyone's like, Zechariah Sitchin, he's a nut job. The Anunnaki, that's all lies. It's like the CIA, the word is, the CIA paid him to do that research.
I can buy that.
He's a university professor. He dug in. He got a lot, according to Farrell, who knows more than I do, he's read them all. I haven't. I read some.
Let me tell you, it's dry toast. It's tough to get through.
Sitchin got some stuff wrong, but he got a lot of stuff right. How many people, when Sitchin did that, there were 5 people in the world who could read Sumerian cylinder seals. And everyone's like, Sitchin's an idiot. I'm like, really? Can you read ancient Sumerian or, Tamil or, whatever, all those old ancient languages? No, you can't. You can't think. So the CIA paid him to do it, and they were like, oh, shit. We knew it. The legends were true, most likely. The Anunnaki are real. Oh, God, maybe some of these weird people we're dealing with know them. We got some questions. Maybe they want mangoes and bananas in trade,
That's right.
So, come on. The Baghdad Museum getting looted, the wars in the Middle East and everything, it all adds up. You can't get around it. Everyone's like, oh, I don't get it. There's no answers. The news has no answers. It's not. Nobody wants to win a war there. They want to keep the status quo going. That's why Trump wants to deal with Iran. Give up your nukes. You don't need them. You don't need those shit anyway. Work with us and we'll work with you. And so far, the Iranian people, the military have been, screw you, buddy. But the hardliners don't win out in the end, usually. Even Stalin at his worst, in the late 40s and early 50s, we were always dealing with them on the Foo Fighters and the UFO stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Stalin was doing all this crazy psychopathic shit. And it's like, but we were reasoning with him and his science guys on the down low. There's always some people, the diplomats tell me, there's always some people you can deal with. And, one of them might be a cousin to Putin or date his daughter, whatever it is, you shouldn't do this, sir, and he'll listen to them. So it's very delicate. It's very hard. It's very difficult to do that. The Iranians are a tough nut. You're dealing with a religious ideology. You can't fight an ideology. It's an idea. It's in people's heads. Allah is great. You're Satan. Black and white. That's it. And so you can't deal with people of those mindset. You've got to reason with the half and half people, the people that are a little less fundamental, reason with them. And they go down the line. It's a very difficult process. Everyone's like, Trump lost the war. And I'm like, are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
America doesn't lose wars. Even if we do lose a war, we win in other ways you don't know about. Everyone's like, we lost Vietnam. It's like, yeah, on the surface. Who won? The American military industrial complex won. The American people won. It was a bigger military, more economic money, all this stuff, we won. It's just we lost the surface war. But everything underneath, they were doing UFO stuff in Vietnam. I talked to Army Rangers about it. They tell you stories that will make your skin crawl. We won. We win everything. It's just the public thinks we lost. The hippies had the right idea, but they didn't have the follow through. The deep state put all the toothpaste back in the tube in the 80s. Crack cocaine, really great music, which I loved. And
music sucks these days. Awful.
Money, yuppies, upwardly mobility. The hippie thing was done. Take your Jimi Hendrix and go fuck yourself. But the idea,
and no more LSD.
The ideas of women's libs, civil rights, gay rights, those stayed with us. So it changed society, but the movement was crushed. But the ideas lived on, and we have gay marriage today and women's lib and civil rights. It lives on. So everyone's like, oh, we lose these wars. It's like, we don't lose anything. We left Afghanistan on our own accord. The Taliban was not winning. We got what we wanted. We explored their underground tunnels and bases. Whatever was there, we got it. And time to go home. We just left our junk there for them to use. A few Humvees, weapons. Who cares?
Because more where that came from.
More fighting with Pakistan. Great, you can use our equipment.
Yep.
It's twisted, but that's how the world works. There's secret wars going on all the time, whether they be kinetic or not. There's financial wars, technology wars, everything. Even the war within the disclosure movement, people battling each other. I do it. I get really angry. I shouldn't do it. Shame on me. But everyone's human. You get angry at people who don't do enough, and then the people that go way too far, you're angry at them too. It's very difficult. So it's not an easy world, and disclosure is not going to be simple. It's going to be complex and messy, no matter how you slice it. Government's not going to give you jack shit ever.
Nope. I don't understand why people are waiting for the government to tell them.
Because they want officials to tell them.
Official nonsense. Official is BS.
You and I know that.
Yeah.
Most people don't. Most people respect. They don't. They distrust the government. 60% of Americans, but still, on something scary, they'll go to the government and military every time. Oh,
it's remarkable.
God, invasion.
It's remarkable.
Now I'm a conservative. All of a sudden, people do that. They get scared. I understand that, but they're going to have to get over it. We are a star nation. We are out there. We are on par with several civilizations. I believe that. The amount of corporations and startups we have dealing with the technology is incredible. Trillions are changing hands. It's business as usual. It affects us all. The technology, everything. The metaphysics and spirituality and theosophy and philosophy too. But that's harder to teach. You show a person a flying saucer that speaks a million words. You show them manually P. Hall's secret teachings.
Yeah, right. Good luck.
That Jesus. It's leave that to the occult nerds. I have an occult team that I work with. They're very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And I take their advice. It's hard. It's not going to be easy. It's hard. But everyone wants it to be easy and straightforward. It's none of that.
No.
It's the big one. It's not the corn subsidy. It's not World War II. It's not. It's bigger than anything else in human history.
Absolutely, because it's a turning point and it's an inflection point.
Most people still marginalize it. They think we're all nuts and fringe.
No, I honestly think we're at the ending of a timeline here, and by the ending, I mean that could last another couple hundred years, 1,000 years or so. But there's got to be some kind of inflection point. It's coming to a boil.
Years, in 50 years, everyone's going to know.
Yeah.
Whether they understand it or not, it doesn't really matter. You can take your time.
Right.
But the big basics, and it'll be fascinating too. But there's a lot of horrific things going on in the world, and we've got to come to terms with that. You can't just focus on the positive. There's a lot of toxic, UFO subject, stuff, positivity.
Yeah, like the hybrid thing,
Right.
the alien
In
rape.
the desert, those people mean well, but they're just focusing on the positive stuff. It's all fluff and hippies and, crystal jewelry and what have you. So it there needs to be balance. I'm sorry if I have to be the hard ass. I'm not the only hard ass. There's other people, but people gravitate towards the positive. Oh,
Uh-oh. Looks like Mr. Warner may have been cut off. Who doesn't want him to say what he was about to say on the Chris Michaels show? I had one final question for Mr. Warner, and that was, have you ever met an actual alien? But seeming that we've been cut off at this moment, doesn't appear as though old Chris Michaels will be able to ask that question, and we'll have to save it for next time. So, everybody out there, thank you for watching the Chris Michaels show. This was a special guest, John Warner the Fourth, wealth of knowledge. If you want to go see him, you can go to his website, John Warner IV for the fourth, author.com. He's got a couple of books out there that I want everybody to buy. Also, with those books, there comes a wealth of knowledge that John was able to put in there in a fictional format, but still just as entertaining as anything else. You can also look him up on YouTube. He does a number of interviews, not just with me, but we will have to save all of that for next time. Once again, John W. Warner, IV, author.com. If you want to go to his website and purchase some of his books, I know I will. And everybody, do not forget to like, find, and share the Chris Michaels Show, See Michaels Show on X, and the Chris Michaels Show on Spotify. You can follow me there. You can caterwaul me. You can poke at my demeanor. It's all in good fun. And I do thank John Warner IV and everyone else for joining me tonight on this interview for the Chris Michaels Show.